Hey everybody, welcome back to Digital Marketing Masters. Today, Carolyn Wilman is my guest.
Carolyn Wilman is a renowned digital marketer specializing in creating and promoting successful campaigns for companies. She is widely recognized as the contest queen and has authored 2 best-selling books, You Can't Win If You Don't Enter and How to Win Cash, Cars, Trips, and More. Through her Online Sweepstakes Entry System, she has helped others win over $1 million in prizes.
And I hope you're feeling lucky today because Carolyn is going to tell us how to win all the things, and or at least how we can find out how to win things.
Today on the podcast show, Carolyn Wilman, you will know. She is the contest queen, helping you win all the things. Digital Marketing Masters with your host, Matt Rouse.
But also, we're going to talk a little bit more about how AI is changing the face of marketing.
Yes.
I want to go way back. 1994, you started Imagination Edge. And that was a marketing consulting firm, right? For small business.
I did. I was in between jobs, and I had a neighbor who had a small business and was struggling, and over the back fence kind of conversation. And they decided they wanted to hire me to help them. And I thought, oh, I've got a business going. I guess I better do something about that. And this is before you had to check to see if the URL was available. And, we poked around, and we ended up with image.net because com was taken.
Oh, no.
And I registered a business. And I was off to the races with one client. That's how I start. Well, isn't that how everybody starts, with one?
That's right. I think I started about a year and a half after you. My first website that I made for a client that I got paid for was for a place that did large format printing that goes on like buses and car wraps and that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow.
And they paid me $50 and a case of beer.
Oh my God, I love that. That's so fun.
You and I both obviously have seen the changes in how marketing has changed over the years. And I know AI is really hot right now with good reason, right? It's jumped the fence. It's gotten to the point where the average kind of tech user doesn't need to be a developer to use it. How do you think AI is going to affect marketing over the kind of near future?
Well, right now, the way it is, I think we still need the humans to help it. We need to put in the right prompts. You get asked the right questions, you get the right answer, kind of thing. And you still need to edit it and fine tune it. I wouldn't say write a book or a copy or anything like that just using AI. I wouldn't be comfortable with that, but that's just me. But I think you need the human, because we have something that it doesn't have, and that's imagination. And I think that's something that the computer will never be able to replicate, even as good as it'll get. It could sound like a human, but it's not human. And so I think we're going to see a shift in how people work and create. They'll start automated, and then the human touch will be put on it. That's what I see. Well, but we don't know what the future holds, so it's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing unfolds.
Well, in the kind of sort of near term, I think that's definitely true. In the longer term, like the sort of creative side of things, that's going to be really difficult, I think, for us to judge. So the way, from my understanding anyways, there's this kind of hidden layer in AI. They actually call it the hidden layer. And what happens there is essentially it's like the all the neuron pathways in your brain. And that's how the program works, right? But the problem is that it's so many calculations so quickly that it would take the rest of your life to analyze how it made one decision. Right? Like it's almost something that's impossible to figure out how it works. I'm sure they will find a way to do it, right? But the way that it works is very similar to intuition, which I found astounding when I started, like, I was hearing them say it, and then I started looking into it, and just, I think the example that Whitman had used was, if you were to say all cats had to be one gender, like male or female, and all dogs are like one gender, male or female, and not to have a gender discussion, but I'm just saying, is this like an intuitive question, right? There's no logical answer to this question.
Right.
Most people would say cats are like females, and most people would say dogs are like males. And that's an intuitive answer that has no logical reasoning. And
Correct.
you can ask that to a large language model, and it can give you that answer. There's no way that it should know that answer, right? It's an intuitive answer to a question. And people are still under the understanding that AI is like a computer program that is logic-based, and they're not. So I think that's where things might get weird on the creativity side, because we don't know how it works.
And it's evolving, which is interesting. And then I've also been listening to some podcasts about the next level of computing, which is quantum computing, which is amazing to me because I'm not a scientist or a computer genius. I just like to teach people how to have fun. And I know how to market that, and I know how to write it down, hence the books.
Right.
And I'm also a terribly late adopter for things, which I keep thinking I should be ahead of this, and then the next thing comes out, and it still takes me a while to get on the bandwagon.
Right.
Like again, with the AI, it took me ages to start trying, poking around with ChatGPT to see how it would work with sweepstakes. And, but probably sooner than I would have in the past taken up something.
Right.
So maybe I'm speeding up a little too.
Well, I was going to say, as an early adopter, I mean, our company's been using AI software to help with tasks for a few years now, right? So we're a little more familiar with it than kind of your average person out of the gate, which happened to work out well for us. But it's something where it's easy to catch up because the interfaces are easy to use now. Like sometimes it's a little weird if you're using maybe an image generator and you say make this thing and it makes somebody who has 8 fingers on one hand or something weird, right? But those systems are going to learn, and they'll be better later, right? But I think it's still important for people to know how to use it. I wouldn't wait too long to be a late adopter is what I'm saying. But,
yeah. Well, like I said, I did try it out fairly soon compared to when I picked up some programs. Like for some reason, I had a BlackBerry, and by the time I got onto, an Android phone, it was 2013, and my handle that I used for my business wasn't available, so I had to add the in front of it. So on Meta, on Instagram and Facebook, I'm the contest queen, and on everything else, I'm contest queen because I was smart enough to at least jump on, maybe not use it, but to grab the handle.
I have a strange suspicion that social media is going to kind of, I'm not going to say it's going to go away because I don't think it's going to go away, but I think it's definitely going to change dramatically.
Yes, I agree with that.
And I think part of the biggest change of it is going to be like the idea of you having your own personal AI and everybody else has their own AI, and the AIs will just talk to each other. So if you won't worry about what's my handle on this thing or that thing. You'll be Carolyn William, the contest queen, and somebody will just go to their AI and say, ask the contest queen such and such thing, and your AI will answer it for you, right? Unless it's important, like the idea that we're going to be digging through our email boxes in a few years is pretty unlikely, right? Unless you have
that would be nice. I have a lot of emails sitting there.
I think your system will go through and do it for you, right? And there's similar programs to that already. So, once they get a little more advanced, I don't think there's any reason that we're going to be spending our days sifting through email anymore, which I try not to do anyway, because, it's kind of a productivity killer. We still have to communicate, but
right. But I have, that's one of the tips I actually give people if you start signing up for sweepstakes is to have an email address separate just for entering. Right. And then check it every day because you do not want to miss a single winning notification. And the same with your socials. If you're entering on Instagram, check your notifications and your tags and your messages on Instagram every day because you don't want to miss out on potentially winning a prize.
Right. Well, I wanted to also talk to you about that because I know we said at the beginning you're going to teach us how to win all the things. So I know just from, reading kind of your background and stuff, well over $1 million in cash and prizes and stuff that people have won, right? From using your books and your system. Right?
Well, I know it's more, but I only have testimonials for $1 million.
Okay, well, only $1 million. Luckily, in 2023, $1 million is still a lot of money. But
right.
Who knows what's going to happen in the future. So anyway, how do you think things are going to change, now that there's AI models and GPT and things like that? Do you think that is going to really change the industry at all? Do you think, because there's already automated bots that can enter contests and things like that. So, it's nothing new, right?
Well, here, let me give you a long answer with a timeline, and sure. I think you'll find this fascinating. So back in the 50s and 60s, it was contests, and I highly recommend your listeners and your viewers read and or watch the prize winner of Defiance, Ohio. And it was Evelyn Ryan who entered sweepstakes as a survival mechanism. And it's how she brought in money and items into her home to help her family survive at that time. And she belonged to a contest club. And at that time, the subtitle of the book is How to Raise 10 Kids on 25 Words or Less. And it was all jingle based, or I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but you'd have to, they'd start something like this brand sandwich spread is, and then you'd have to come up with something that rhymed or was clever. And then they would use that in their advertising.
Like their catchphrase or their captioning.
Right. And it was called consumer generated media, which is interesting because it's going to come full circle to that. Then in the movie, they even showed, hey, have you seen this? And she held up an entry form, an entry blank from the grocery store. So because it was cheaper for companies to run a sweepstakes than a contest, because with a contest, you had to have, lots of people judging it. And the first round of judges, second round of judges, narrow it down. It was very time consuming. With the sweepstakes, you just filled in an entry blank, mailed it in, that was it. So people who weren't creative, it was easier for them to enter and win. So then the hobby expanded. So then it went from contest to sweepstakes, and they were mail-in. And so you'd fill out an entry blank or a 3x5 and maybe have a qualifier, or like make a UPC, like you had the package label or the box top, right. Or you'd make one because they, by law, had to have a no purchase entry option. And you can mail those in. And then I came in to the hobby when it was starting to get computerized. So I was doing half mail-in, half online. But at that point, online was just basically taking the entry blank and sticking it on a web page.
Right.
It wasn't very sophisticated. And then it evolved to where they started doing more fun things. Computers were getting better. More people had them. They became like advert games. You could go in and play a game and get an entry. You could log into an account for the contest, so they knew it was you. There was all kinds of things. Then social media started coming on. So then we had Facebook giveaways and Instagram giveaways, and then it started getting more, and then they became more mobile. And now it's switched to back to the consumer generated media. Right. Hey, take a picture of the product, submit a video on TikTok, and then sometimes they use those to promote their product. Hey, look at our winning entry for this recipe.
It's called the UGC. Everybody calls it UGC now.
Yeah, UGC, UGM. It's marketing lingo. So it's interesting that it's kind of come full circle. So what I see happening maybe with the So what I've done for the Chat GTP and the AI so far, I have not still 100% figured out how it's going to affect the whole sweepstakes as a whole,
Right.
because companies are using it to get people to buy their products and services, and I'm not sure how it would work. However, I have used it to create the no purchase entry option essays. A lot of times in the rules, if a product is really inexpensive and it's less than a postage stamp, for example, a chocolate bar, and you have a code inside that you enter, or on a soda bottle, I say, well, just buy the soda. You have the code and the soda for less than it would take for you to mail away for the code. It doesn't make sense. However, if it's like a case of beer, which is, $50, then,
In
if
Canada.
in Canada, if you happen to have the beer, and then I always try to support the sponsor a little bit,
Right.
and then also do the no purchase entry option, because companies, let's face it, all marketing activity is designed to lead to sales. So if they don't see an increase in sales, they're probably not going to host more giveaways, and we want to make sure that they go, hey, this worked, so we're going to do it again. I don't think it's that healthy to eat that much chocolate or chips or pop or beer or whatever. Of course, I'm waiting for the contest on organic apples. I haven't seen one yet. I've heard there was one. There was one once on bananas, but generally it tends to be the food that we shouldn't be eating.
Right.
All the delicious stuff.
Yeah. Well, has the margin in it, right?
So for the no purchase entry option, I've gone into ChatGPT and say, hey, I need an essay, 50 words or more on this topic, and it writes it out. And then the no purchase entry options usually require handwritten submissions. So then I just hand copy it out and mail it in. So I don't have to come up with the wording, which I found was fun.
Nice.
I didn't win the sweepstakes, but I got my entry in.
There you go. You might even be able to use one of those like Touch Note, or one of the places that sends cards for you that look handwritten, or the
Well, no, they want you to handwrite it.
It's like actual handwriting.
Yeah,
they're
'cause
going
it
to pull
actually
yours
goes-
out, and they're like, "No, the computer hand wrote this."
Well, yeah, actually, they
will.
would. They will.
That's funny.
Um,
Well, let me ask you this.
They sometimes are very sticky on the rules.
Right.
'Cause
Well,
the rules are actually, before
Go
you
ahead.
start, the rules are actually a legal and binding document that can be upheld in a court of law. It's basically a contract between you and the
Right.
sponsor. And if you want to see a good example of this, watch McMillions, the documentary that was on HBO. It was on like 6 parts. And I jumped out. My boyfriend George was like, calm down. I said, I knew it. When they got to the part and the attorney general was using the rules because the people that cheated broke the rules, and that's what they used in court to charge these people with fraud, and it was because of the rules. And I said, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. So it's very important that you follow the rules, and they also follow their rules.
I used to live down the road from these people when I lived in Oregon who would have garage sales all the time, but they were like those super couponer people. They weren't buying the stuff. They were going to the store and buying, like 87 bottles of shampoo for, 60 cents or, whatever. And then they would have garage sales and sell all the stuff. And they were always entering stuff and contests, and, you see them at the grocery store and you're just like, just pick a different aisle, dude, because you're going to be here for an hour while they ring up their 4 shopping carts full of Doritos. But so let me ask you the other side, which is, if I'm a company and I'm going to have a contest, right, for marketing, what rules do you think I need to put in place, considering the era of AI, right? So is the handwriting contest entry a good idea? Is there other things you can do, like make somebody sign up with their social media account or whatever it is?
Yeah, there's a lot of things companies do to make sure that it's real people versus a bot. So, for example, it's easy to do bot ones for things like the Twitter contest where you just follow and retweet.
Right.
That's pretty simple program. But there's so many programs now that you have to, put in your email and then hit submit, and then you're playing a game and you have to do maybe an instant win game, or you have to do something on your mobile phone. There's no way that a computer can go through and do all the steps for the verification and for the CAPTCHA and for maybe they could, but I can't see it based on how, first of all, like Starbucks is doing one right now. I have to log into my account to enter. So that's not going to work.
I mean, it's definitely not impossible, right? Using tools that exist now, but you would need to be a developer to do it, which kind of limits the point, right? Because I mean, if you're a developer who's good enough to write something to log into your Starbucks account, play the game, and then get the prize, then you're wasting your time because you could be making $300 an hour instead of trying to get a Starbucks card, right?
And also, you have to make a purchase in the store to get entries, so because it's attached to your card, which is attached to your account. And then you have to read the rules to find the very minuscule button for the no purchase entry option for that day. You can only do it once a day. And then the link goes to your email. So you have to click your email link, which is unique to you, that comes. So it would be really hard to have somebody, scam all that. Now,
there's a lot of automation that I've seen before to do those kinds of things. But what happens is there's always seems to be some kind of 1 or 2 manual steps you still have to do in the process. So maybe it can speed it up, but I don't think you're ever going to kind of beat the system, because they'll just change the system.
I like to use RoboForm. I tell people you have to be, one of the keys to winning is to be organized.
Right.
Because you don't want to, believe it or not, companies don't take down the sweepstakes right away sometimes or have it lock off, depending on their marketing budget on how they develop the sweepstakes.
Right.
So sometimes, you would enter, especially when I started, and it was just like a straight up entry page, it'd still be up days after it closed. So here I am entering, wasting my time because the contest is already closed. I would get all excited, enter one. I'd enter I call him my husband, and then I would go, I should read the rules, which is my number one tip. Always read the rules. Then I read, 1 entry per household. Well, I've just disqualified us. It's good to have a system, and I use RoboForm, and it just helps me go faster, so I can enter more in 1 hour than without the program, because it helps me stay organized, and it can fill out forms, and it's nice because I'm not going to make a typing mistake. Because think about it, if you're entering and you make a typo in your email, they have no way to notify you, because you've just not disqualified yourself, but made it impossible to win.
They can't reach you. So let me ask you, and you don't have to say the company if you don't want to, but what's the last thing you won?
We won, it was on Instagram, and it was from that new show on Prime, Daisy and the Six. It was a Daisy and the Six prize pack, which we are waiting for to come in the mail.
Nice. I've always been really lucky with like sweepstakes and charity draws and stuff like that. And I just win crap all the time. And I don't even really enter that often unless it's like a charity or something I'm entering. Maybe I should just get back in there. Just get entering.
You should.
Stuff.
There's the big stuff. There's little stuff and there's big stuff. So there's 3 kinds of prizes out there available to be won. There's just fun prizes. Like I have out in my garden, I have a little Travelocity gnome. He's cute. I love him. He's weird. Doesn't change my life, but it's fun. Then there's things that will replace your budget. So you can win, gas cards and grocery gift cards and gift baskets with beauty products and stuff that you would have to go and buy anyway. But now that money is allocated elsewhere. You can use it to pay down debt or save up for a vacation. Then there's stuff that may be out of your budget. Some people just don't have it in their budget for a brand new fridge or a brand new car or that vacation. So this can give them an opportunity that they just don't have the funds for. And then there's the prizes that money can't buy. Like I've met Sting, totally cool, Michael Bublé, at a private concert. It was like 30 people. And then in between songs, he would come around and meet everybody and take pictures and sign autographs. And that was so cool. And like, that's not going to happen in my everyday life.
Right.
And I have had friends, sweepstakes friends that have won. Well, they just started coming back, but the Oscars red carpet, they're on the red carpet with the stars and, Super Bowl. Like, when are you going to go to the Super Bowl?
Right.
That's not going to happen.
Especially if you're from Canada. It makes it a little more tough.
My sweeping friend, Tom, there's actually a huge community of sweepstakers. We're all friends. And he had a buddy that won, and he took them, and they were right on the field during halftime,
right. Nice.
Watching the halftime show. When is that going to happen in your everyday life? Never, unless you won a sweepstakes.
What's funny is everybody talks about like meeting celebrities and stuff, and I'm always like telling my wife, I'm like, I went to Creator Economy Expo a few weeks ago, and I met Jay Baer, and she's like, who? Like, the guy who wrote the book about like marketing stuff, and she's like, I don't even know who you're talking about. To me, it's a big deal, but maybe it's not Sting. But also, Jay Baer has a really good channel on I think it's Instagram and TikTok right now about learning about how to taste tequilas properly, which is an interesting twist. But so anyways, I don't want to run out of time, and I love all the ideas so far on entering contests. But if somebody wants to learn about like the best way to, all these tips that you have, I'm sure there's a lot more to it.
Oh, it's a lot.
Is it like, do they go to your website? Do they get a book? How do they learn these things?
Well, what I started with is I want to get people started. And so I created a couple of things on my website. First, I have a free sweepstakes starter kit. It's a little booklet that I created. And they could go to my website, contestqueen.com, and get that. And then I also have a section on my website that says 5 steps to begin winning. And it's a little more in depth. So it wasn't really conducive to a book, and it has a lot of links in it. And so I set up that section, and people can go through. And again, that's where I start outlining, get an email address just for entering, and always read the rules, and use what is known as a sweepstakes aggregate, because it aggregates all the sweepstakes into one place and saves you a ton of time, because you don't want to randomly just try and find things on the internet yourself, that kind of a thing. And I walk people through.
I guess they're
steps.
Time sensitive, right? So there's a lot of times they're not going to be on Google or Bing or something because they're not indexed yet until the contest's over.
Well, and it depends on the giveaway. Like, I won a trip last year from Booking.com, and it was only held during the Super Bowl. So it was basically a 5-hour contest.
Yeah, you can't really Google that.
You can't Google that. You had to know about it, and if you didn't know about it, you weren't entering. So that's why it's good to use an aggregate, because they just bring them in. Now, I do find all my locals on my own. I set up a list of all the local media outlets and companies in my area that I know that host frequent sweepstakes and giveaways. And then I check those once a week to see what they have new, because those will also not end up on the aggregates. And of course, your local list is going to be dependent on where you live. So if you're in a major market like LA or New York, you're going to have more opportunity to, for Disney prizes, Universal prizes, Broadway shows, things like that. Than if you live in a rural area, you're going to have less of those opportunities. I live near Toronto, so there's a lot of movie premieres. At one point, my daughter said to me, "When was the last time we paid for a movie, Mom?" I'm like, I don't know. And then we had all these movie gift cards we had won, and we're saving, because we always used to use them for the popcorn when we win the tickets. And then the pandemic happened, and I thought, oh no, we have like hundreds of dollars in movie cards, and we didn't use them because we were always winning the tickets. And so, yeah, I was really happy when the theaters opened again.
Wow. So I know that we have the promise this season on my show of tactical AI things, and I have an AI idea for your business that I think you can use.
I would love it, because I'm automating this year. That's one of my goals, is to automate.
So there's a Chrome plugin that you can
Okay.
get. Works on browser as well. And there's a few others that do it, but it's called AutoGPT.
Okay.
AutoGPT is a task-based AI. So what you
Okay.
do is you tell it what the task you want it to do is, and then
Okay.
you hit, there's a little plus sign there if you want to add another task. And then you say continue. And it will, essentially what it does, it makes some API calls, and then it comes back and it says, this is the plan that I've put together to accomplish your task.
Ooh.
And then it starts completing those steps. And each time, for each step, you got to click the button because it's not 100% automated.
Okay.
The reason for that is that you don't want to tell it to do something that is an infinite loop that will burn through all of your money because you have to pay for API calls. But it's a fraction of a cent, right? So I think like you just go to OpenAI, right? Just like
Okay.
you would use ChatGPT. Just type
Okay.
into the internet OpenAI API key, right? API is application programming interface. So API key. They will give you one. And you get, I think you get $18 of credit. And then you have to pay for it after that. But if you have a Plus account, you can use that for the API calls too.
Oh, it's like
Anyway.
a free trial, so it's good.
Right.
You get to test it.
Free
before
trial,
you-
get to test it out. It costs
Excellent.
about 0.3 or 0.4 cents to do an API call. So AutoGPT is going to cost you 10 cents a day kind of thing. Like it's super cheap.
Yeah, I think my business could afford that.
That's right. So you get the AutoGPT Chrome plugin. Don't confuse it because there's an AutoGPT program for Python, which you need to be a developer. This is just a plugin. You just click the plugin install and it installs it. And then you log in, you put your API key in, and you're ready to go. And then you say, I'm going to give you a list of URLs where I want you to check if there's an active promotion or sweepstakes. And then paste in the URL. And then you do that, test it. You know, you got to test it a little bit to get it to work right. Once you've got it, copy and paste in all those URLs that you use into one big kind of prompt. And you hit go, and it'll go check all the URLs, and it's going to report back to you if there is a current promotion or contest.
That's
And then
interesting.
it'll tell you which ones have it. So instead of you having to go check them, you can have the auto agent go do that for you and just give you a list of which ones are currently active, and then you can go double check them yourself. So instead of checking all of them, you can just check the ones it thinks have an active promotion.
Yeah, that's a good idea because I do something close to it with RoboForm, and I go through all the local media, and it just, I highlight it, it opens them all up. I just check one at a time, and I do that once a week. This sounds like it would even be faster than that.
You can. You might even be able to set it up to enter some of them for you. I'm not sure how well it works with other plugins. I haven't tried that yet.
Yeah, I'm a little wary of that because the number one thing is to always read the rules.
Right?
And so if it's not aware of the rules, you don't want to disqualify yourself. So I would always be
true.
wary of something entering on my behalf.
You could also
And-
ask it to read the rules.
And also, the other thing that's in the rules is it doesn't like, there's actually always a clause about auto, entries.
Right.
Something
Automation.
like RoboForm is fine because it's very similar to autocomplete. And I know sponsors do prefer that because then they know there's no spelling errors. And there's people that might have arthritis or have low vision, and it's much easier for them to use a product like that because then there's less chance there'll be an error, especially like I said, even filling out regular forms. If you make a mistake, you won't be able to be contacted, sweepstakes or not.
Right.
And so that's where it's good. But I would love to try it to see what else it could do because
Yeah.
I
all
have
you
more
wanna
than one
do-
business.
Yeah. What I'm saying is all you want to do is you want to take anything that is a repeatable kind of
Yes.
low value or time consuming task that you do, and you want to hand that off to an AI or an AI agent. And those programs are going to get better over time. But I was able to use AutoGPT. I said, I want to write an article about where people can donate for victims of the forest fires in Nova Scotia. Mm-hmm. And it made a plan. It said, I have to make sure that the charities are reputable and that the information I provide is accurate. So I'm going to double check the information with other websites. And it did all these things. And it gave me some useful information. There's still a few I had to go look up myself. Mm-hmm. But I would say it did 75% of the work. Right?
Well, that cuts out a huge amount of time that you can use elsewhere.
Time, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to go write the post, that tells people where they can donate and stuff like that. I'm just using it to go find the resources, right? Instead of me going and searching, I have it go search the internet for me, right? So it can save you a huge amount of time.
Well, that would be interesting because there are searches that people do on a regular basis to find local sweepstakes other than your local media, that there's keywords that they consistently search for. And use a Google alerts for, but this might be one step above that. And that not just me, but fellow sweepstakers could use it to consistently find new and active giveaways.
So, and this is something that's coming up very, very soon, is in Google Workspace. So if somebody has their Gmail through Google Workspace, or if you have Microsoft Office 365, you have your email through that, you'll be able to use their AI. They're called different names on different platforms, but there's going to be an AI that you can use to ask questions there, and you'll be able to do stuff like search my email for, the word winner, or search my email for confirmation, and it'll go through all your email, get you all the confirmation emails, and then you can just go click them. Oh
my gosh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I've been doing the searches, but that I actually have that tip in my book about searching your email, every few days for the word winner or congratulations, or even the word affidavit, but then affidavit, because sometimes people spell it wrong. So you also look for the errors winning notifications.
Absolutely. As a Canadian, you will appreciate this. So we have companies in the US and Canada. So I wrote a Canadian to USA translator with GPT. It uses the GPT API call, and it goes out. And so when we write a blog or an article or a press release or something for a company that operates in Canada and the US, we used to have to manually go through and read it and change all the spelling, for words like neighborhood, that's OU, or armor is OU, versus US spelling. Color is COLOUR in Canada, and it's COLOR in the United States. And also there's some slang terms and stuff that are different, between the countries. And so it does all this for us now. You just paste in the article and you decide if you want to convert it to, American or Canadian, and you hit the button and it does it in about 15 seconds. And that used to take
interesting.
Hours.
Well, when I wrote this book, it was the American edition, and I had a friend, an American sweeping buddy, and she edited the book American style. She went through and Americanized the book, right. And it wasn't just the lingo, it was sometimes how you said things or explained things, and so I had to go and fix it. Now it's really interesting. One thing I discovered is we think it's a sweepstake because it's singular, but for some reason it's sweepstakes. It's always plural, even when you say it singularly,
right?
And then every country has their different things. So in America it's sweepstakes. In Canada and Australia and India, it's contests. We enter contests. And in the UK and a few other countries than that, you're entering competitions. So there's sweepers, there's contesters, and there's compers. And it just depends on where you live.
Oh, that's interesting. And the book that you were pointing out was You Can't Win If You Don't Enter, for those of you who are listening and not watching the video.
Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot.
Yeah, no,
sorry.
No. And, well, Carolyn, I think there's a lot of value packed in here for people. a few AI ideas as well as how they could win contests and stuff. We'll put a link to your books and your website in the show notes if you guys want to check that out. And is there anything else you want to tell our audience before you leave for the day?
I think we're good. Just soon, though, because my business has been expanding and I've been writing more books. I actually started a publishing company called Words for Winning, and the website will be up soon. I've already started the socials, and that's where at some point all my books will live, because they're not just sweepstakes books, and so they didn't fit on Contest Queen. I had to make them a home.
That's right. That's great. And you know what? Thanks so much for sharing your knowledge about winning with us. And I think who knows what's going to happen with AI in the future, but for now, let it help you win some contests.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Carolyn.
Thanks.